Hello and welcome to Kisma and the Dark Yogi, brought to you by SourceMovement.com. We're here for people who want to be radically authentic and courageously vulnerable. Whether you're a yoga teacher building a tribe or an entrepreneur running a business, we're here to get your energy and mindset positioned for success. No more stress, no more lack of energy. Lead with full potential. Our intention is to leave the world a better place than we found it and inspire you to do the same. So let's go have some fun.
All right, welcome everybody. The topic of the call tonight is going to be money. And so I'm so excited to dive into this, and really I'm going to, the setup of this call is going to be for me to pick Kisma's brain and see what comes up with her around this, because Kisma's owned a very successful yoga studio. You know, the studio did over $500,000 in a year, and that was, pretty much from the start. It just took off, and it was an instant success, and a large part of that, I think, had to do with that, how she relates to money, how she thinks about money and business and people, and has those conversations, and how she is in it. And not to say that, just by the way, that just because you have a successful business, that your money conversation is really clean and clear. So I know that things continue to come up, and it's just like yoga. Like it's not separate from your yoga. If there's one thing that you walk away with from this whole call, it's that it's going to be that your yoga practice is not separate from your money conversation or your business conversation. They are not separate at all. In fact, that's one of a great yardstick of, the flow of money and resources in your life, of spiritually, like where you're at, living and acting in the world and having a business and yada, yada, yada. So, without further ado, I guess my first question is just in the broad sense, like, what do you see as, the biggest problems that yoga teachers encounter in dealing with money?
Wow.
Just in a general sense, like first thing that pops into your head.
First thing that pops in my head is that we don't believe we can make money. And this isn't entirely our fault, and probably not at all. It's a belief system that permeates the industry. It's a little bit of the way of life of a spiritual person or seeker. And it also is part of how yoga studios treat their teachers, and it's yoga teachers staying on this track and road that's been paved for them that doesn't really allow them to think about the possibility of making more money.
Interesting. I've noticed it from two perspectives. I'm interested to hear your thought on this. Like, there's the people who get into yoga teaching who have been successful and made money, but then they just weren't happy doing it. And then they just totally screwed up their money because they got into spirituality.
What do you mean?
Well, I've seen people. Well, I can use myself for an example of I had a good decent paying job. It wasn't it was pretty dead end. Like, it definitely had a ceiling on it, and I was at that ceiling, so that was one of the reasons that I left it. But I was doing fine financially. I didn't have any problems. I didn't want for anything. But when I got into yoga and then started to make the leap of doing it, full time, it really started to mess with me, and it brought up all the stuff that I had around money. And then there was the whole spirituality piece of I don't need this to be happy. And so it's not that any of it's wrong. It's just that what I've noticed is that it's not wrong. It's just gets twisted up. I don't know. What are your thoughts about that?
Well, yes. Whenever we enter a career where we're in front of people trying to lead them to a new level of being, it brings things up for us, because that means we better get our butts in gear and do our best to get to that new level of being. So there's such a focus on how we can be on this journey that oftentimes the attachment to it can end up negating the ability to profit from it. Or there's just this permeating overall feeling of, I'm not really good enough yet, so it's no wonder I'm not making much money.
What would you say for you was the biggest blocker that you encountered in dealing with the business, let's go back to the yoga studio days. Like, what was the biggest things that came up for you that really just made it harder than it needed to be?
It wasn't hard.
None of it was hard for you?
It wasn't hard. It was in the flow. I mean, I had Swamiji say, business is about profit and loss, and as long as you get that, you'll be fine. So it really wasn't hard. What was hard is, like, sometimes you get these boxes of Lululemon and you had to be there for 5 hours doing inventory. To me, that was tedious and hard. And yeah, there were moments where we had a slow month or two or whatever, but you just kind of look at it and be like, okay, so what can I do that's different to get people in the door? So I wouldn't say it was hard.
Okay, cool. When did it get hard?
When it got hard was when the alignment to the highest was off with certain people I would just say in my business, partners or whatever. So when we fall out of alignment with the highest ideal, then it gets hard. Really, really hard.
Okay, cool. Interesting. Now, just kind of switching gears here, you mentioned something earlier about the yoga studios, kind of like the way they contribute to that, to those problems with teachers. What do you mean by that?
Well, it irks me when a studio pays $25 and that's it for a yoga teacher to teach a class. And I get it from both directions. Like, you're there, you're trying to make payroll, but that's just coming again from a studio owner's lack mentality that there won't be enough. And yoga teachers are the cost of goods sold. This is what we're selling. We're selling like these amazing teachers to walk in the room, become vulnerable, bare their souls, and teach a class. And not just like teach a class, but really lead people into an experience. So if the studio owner has that understanding of the depth of what it can create for people, then they should really have no problem paying a flat rate. And then, we used to do like over 10, it would be an extra $2 or $3 per person. So there was an incentive for the teacher too to bring people in, which is good. Like, there should be a partnership in wanting to grow the enrollment of the classes. Yeah.
I mean, I personally benefited from that in a major way. Like, I did really well as a yoga, way better than most as a yoga teacher. But I was set up with studios with a studio that really supported that, and enrolled the teacher actively in building the class and rewarded for that. And I think that's really important. It creates a stronger partnership.
Right.
Now, it's interesting, though, you mentioned that poverty, that lack mentality. What I've noticed is that mentality, that consciousness is pretty much everywhere in our society. So it shows up in the most unlikely places, I think. Like, it's not just around money. It's lack in all areas. Like, if you have lack in money, like, you're probably, there's lack in other areas as well. One of the interesting ones that I was just thinking about recently is, like, jealousy. Like most people wouldn't attach jealousy to a lack mentality, but it's basically, what is jealousy? It's like wanting what somebody else has.
Somebody else has. Which you don't have.
Exactly. Therefore, you don't have. Therefore, you lack. Or there's not enough to go around. Lack, all the way around.
Right.
So I think it's interesting all the different ways that type of lack shows up. Now, what my question to you is, like, what do you see as some of the telltale signs in a person's energy, in their language or their speech, in their words, that tells you that, wow, there might be a few things out of alignment here?
I mean, in terms of like someone who actually owns a business, or just in general?
Just in general, more broad for yoga teachers in general.
It's not enough. There's not enough. And this is tricky too, because sometimes there isn't enough. Like, sometimes, I know a lot of teachers, it's like, can I make my bills this month? So I get it when they're in this place like there's not enough. And that's why it's a tricky piece to be like, break through that and understand the reality that you're seeing today doesn't have to be the reality in 60 days or 90 days. And it really does need a mindset shift, and it needs taking action. So the big thing that Nick and I are studying, the whole manifesting right now, is like, you got to release the negative energy and the blockages, but you also have to take action. And then I think there's the thought process and mindset that, well, I am a spiritual being, so I shouldn't make money. And that's just bullshit. We can sit around and be like happy granola people all the time, or we can kick some butt and have thriving businesses and serve everybody on a bigger level, right? So we have to be really careful. Like, look, if you understand tamasic and rajasic and sattvic, I mean, tamasic is very indolent and lazy, right? And sattvic, well, rajasic is going to be very busy, very active. And sattvic is peaceful. It's the highest form of being. You know, it's just like pure contentment. I mean, talk about being in the flow. Like, if you're sattvic, man, you are in the flow and you're able to manifest and live and do and be completely happy. So we all have all three of these, but interestingly enough, tamasic and sattvic can mirror each other. So there's this weird, like, someone can appear to be sattvic, but they're actually tamasic. They're not doing what they need to do to really serve. They might, like, look really peaceful. They might have the tattoos. They might be oming. They might be like, hey, brother. But when it comes down to it, a sattvic person, it's like intense work is rest. Mm-hmm. That whole quote. If you are doing what you should do and you have that objectivity, you can be in a sattvic place.
So it's like, that's why you see people who are just zenned out, who, you know, like, they're happy, but they're not productive and they don't have, or they're minimally productive. Doing just enough to have what they need. Mm-hmm. Or you see people who are just like action everywhere, but they have no peace.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
So that's what you're describing, the trans-sattvic state, right, is where you have both.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
The height of karma yoga.
Right.
Wow. Okay, that's really cool.
So it's all still yoga, like you said, being in the call. It's all yoga.
Yeah. I'm a great studier of people. Like, I love watching people, and you know, some of the things that I notice when somebody's got some things around that is, one is like the discomfort of just talking about money, but the judgment of those who have it. That's one that I noticed right away.
Or the judgment of those who don't have it.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
So we could step in. This is just, again, it's like it's human nature to look at anybody that's in a different place from us and kind of judge, like, ooh, you know, they're making way too much money. They must be disconnected from spirit and whatever.
They must be sham.
Yeah,
they must be lie. They must be a liar. They must be a fraud.
Or, oh, that person, like, just can't even, you know, can't do anything with their money. So it's not understanding that we're all one. It's differentiating ourselves from others. Whereas if we just looked at everybody and went, that's really fascinating where that person is, you know, if it's something that we want to emulate, is be happy to, like, wow, I wonder what I could learn from that person, or what ideas could I get from their business.
Yeah. And there's always, that's the thing, you know, it's like the abundance mindset is that there is always more than enough to go around.
There's more than enough to go around. And this is hard for even me to grasp that, but there's more than enough to go around. And that will come straight down to faith and believing and really trying to shift your thoughts and beliefs on money. So, because whenever we come from the lack mentality that there isn't enough, it creates an energy that's really frenetic and chaotic and fragmented, and we can't produce or manifest from that.
Okay, I want to get back to that, the fragmentation, because that's a really interesting point. What I wanted to mention before that is just what I found to be really helpful is noticing it's not just around money, although that's a real hot button for a lot of people, but noticing the lack mentality everywhere helps to clean that up. I don't have enough ideas. There's not going to be enough students for me. You know, I don't have enough love.
I don't have enough energy.
I don't have enough friends. I don't have enough energy. Ooh, that's a good one.
I don't have enough time.
Right. Enough time. Oh, yeah. And then you make time the enemy. So in all those different ways, like all it's really highlighting is just information. But to me, like what that highlights is like, oh, man, like that's me being out of my full potential. My full potential is abundant in every way, like just like everybody else is, and everybody else has that. So that's just me being out of alignment with that, or disconnected from that, reconnect, and then you step back into the flow.
Right.
Now, I want to get back to that you mentioned about the fragmentation. So can you, I guess if you could expand on that a little bit.
Well, especially, like, think about it. We're yogis, and we love to do what? We love to be in the flow. We love to be in the flow in class. We love to be in the flow of life. We love things to be awesome and beautiful and loving and all that. That's kind of why we're here. We're really special beings. Like, number one, we gotta honor this about ourselves. We are not your typical human. Most of us are on this planet as a seeker. We probably have guides and angels that would talk to us if we allowed them. Like, there's some pretty phenomenal stuff about us. So we want to be in the flow. We do really well when we're in the flow. Classes go well, relationships go well, we even make money. When we're fragmented, when our energy is fragmented or broken, it's hard to be in the flow. You can't be in the flow if you're broken. So if you just think about your energy bodies and it just starts out, maybe 12 inches outside of you, you've got the mental, emotional, and physical, right? So something enters our world in the mental state. And that can just be somebody saying something to us having an experience. And if our intellect isn't in place, we take the hit on the emotional level. Well, what happens then? It's like drama and trauma to the psyche. And then it can even go into our body. But if you think about, if you want your energetic presence outside of you to really be whole and resilient in the flow, if it gets broken and where you don't have the ability to protect ourselves with an intellect, we get full of anxiety. We become full of anxiety, and that's where the fragmentation starts.
I love the way your mind works. It's just the Kisma mind just trips me out sometimes. Like, whoa. How does manifesting work in panic?
It doesn't. Well, I'm going to take that back. Sometimes when we're panicked, like if that fire is under our butt and we're like, shit, I got to make $257.85 by next week, and there's like a panic, but if we can really shift gears and be like, all right, come on, let's do it. And if the mind is so set, like, I got to have this, and we start doing things, we will get that. So the panic can be directed to action. And if you think about what I said earlier, intense work is rest, the Swami Ramatirtha quote, if you're like all of a sudden, boom, this is what I'm going to do, and you're in that flow of action, you'll feel rested and your manifesting will actually happen. So if panic can be used to like redirect or get someone to actually take action, because that's usually where the manifesting doesn't work, is people don't take action. But if the panic's like, shit, I got to do something, and we do it, we'll have it.
Yeah. I mean, it's good for getting out of the survival mode.
Yeah,
you know,
the tamasic state or whatever.
It kind of like jars you out of that. But I think what that creates is, from my experience anyway, like what that winds up creating is the roller coaster.
Yeah.
Like you just go to get to that place, then you get to that place, and then all you want to do is stop, and then you stop, and then everything tanks again. So, and that's definitely not going to be in the flow. Like that's going to be stop, go, and you're going to ride that roller coaster of like, okay, I'm doing it. Oh my God, everything sucks. Right.
And here's another thing I'll just throw out there. I'm thinking about a woman, really, really, really brilliant and a highly skilled woman. Here's our train that I met at an event, and she is a yogi. Okay, she's not teaching yoga, but she's spiritual, and she is working on being a spiritual coach. She also has amazing skills at WordPress. She can build websites like in a heartbeat. And she was absolutely broke. And I'm like, I don't get this. I don't get it. And I'm talking to her, and I'm like, I don't get it. So I gave her this list of things to do. Okay, create 3 emails that you're going to send to your list, offering them this special, like it was Black Friday, boom, boom, boom deal. It was brilliant. She set up the emails. They were clean. They were clear. She had videos of herself. Like it was win-win. Nobody bought. So here's the deal. She wants to live in poverty. She doesn't know it, but she gets something out of being in poverty. And that's really a hard thing to wrap your head around. And it's a very deep thing. But when we're in that place, we have to ask ourselves, what do we get? Or, better yet, what happens when we're not in poverty? And it usually equates to, who's the person I need to be when I'm actually making money? And does that person that you need to be kind of scare you?
So what you're really saying is it's a matter of choice.
It's a matter of choice.
Consciously or unconsciously?
Consciously or unconsciously. Yeah. And I want to be really sensitive because, like, I know what it's like to, like, shit, am I going to pay the rent this month, right? So we don't always see that. But the beauty of the opportunity, I think, and this is what I've sort of been working through myself, the beauty that we have as yogis is we kind of have this line from our crown chakra up to the highest. Okay, so you got to know, like, look how many people are on this planet, and never mind the rest of the universe. That'll be a whole other call. I think we should do a call on aliens. That would be awesome. You have a direct channel to source. You totally do. We all do, but yogis have a little bit more opening because we're flowing, we're working, we're studying, we're meditating, we're chanting, whatever our stuff is. Maybe it's just walking the dog in a yogi way. Like, our crown chakra can buzz like nobody else's. So we got to remind ourselves, man, we have that channel, we have that connection. If we are connected and if we're in that channel, we should be in the flow. And it will be so much easier to take the actions we need to take without worrying about what other people think. And it's funny because earlier today, like, we've been on a very big day for us, and something just said to me, all right, sit down. And, you know, we feel differently about meditating, but again, that's a whole nother call. But I've been tapping into my guides and my angels. That's like my meditation. Something was like, sit down now and just listen, just receive. And the download for me was, if we're worrying about what other people think, we're not embracing source within us, because it means we're extracting that. Like, source, God, Jesus, whoever your, like, awesome thing one is unconditional love. So if we're not totally embracing that, that's when we worry about what other people think and if we do things wrong. If we absolutely are like, all right, I am one with that source, why would we care? Why would we care what other people think? And I say this because we generally stop taking action or doing things because we have this paradigm or belief or whatever that we might be criticized or people might think it's weird, or we just can't do it ourselves.
I'll shine too bright. What will
shine
they think
too
of
bright.
me?
Yeah, what will they think?
Yeah, or I'll fail, and what will they think?
Or I'll fail, and what will they think? Who cares? Fail and do it again.
Yeah, fail
Everybody
fast.
knows, man, you can't succeed without failure.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of that, like, fail fast. You know, it
Fail
feels
fast,
like
shift it up.
Does not feel good, but it's always a good sign, because that's like you're moving, you're taking action. If you fall on your face right out of the box, like, awesome, you just found you were the first one to find the way not to do it.
Right.
So keep rolling.
Right.
I think it's interesting, you know, when you talked about the payoff that you get for that, and I can speak to myself, and one of the ones that, you know, continually has come up for me is, you know, the kind of like suffering hero kind of thing. Like, man, like, I got to fight so hard to get it, you know, like, whatever it is, whatever that goal is. You know, if it's a monetary goal or whatever, like, I got to fight so hard to get it, you know, and then I'll, you know, most likely just fall a little bit short, you know. And it's like, if you look, that's why I mentioned it before, because I think it's so important. Like, all the areas that shows up in your life, that's definitely going to show up in your money too.
Totally. It's going to show up everywhere. It's going to show up how we parent, how we are as partners, how we are at work. Like, if we only get to so far in an action that we're taking, it's going to permeate everything about us.
Right. And you can imagine, I mean, I can only, it's even hard for me to describe, but as that has shifted for me, I mean, just imagine, you know, maybe some of you have this, maybe not, but just imagine what it's like to put your whole heart and soul into something that you believe, like, so much, and just, like, to really try, and time again, like, just fall a little bit short and always feel like a failure.
Yeah.
Like, that sucks.
It sucks.
So you can imagine, you know, those things, just stepping out of that, even if it's for an instant, it's like, wow, like, this is really cool. But as you begin to transform that and continue to transform that, like, there's a whole other world outside of that paradigm,
right,
that you can create. And there's a whole different, we're really talking about is a whole different way of being and doing and having that will create a new reality for you.
Yes.
You are the creator of your reality.
Totally.
So that's why how do I want to say it? The tough pill to swallow is that it's always a choice. But the beauty of that pill, like that's, what is it, the red pill or the blue pill, right? Like that's the one that wakes it up to be like it's choice. Like you have the choice.
And this was another thing I just, this was a bomb on this training that we were doing. And we really hope we can share more of this in some of our courses, the whole manifesting thing. But when we're in alignment with Source, God, and we take those actions and we do it, it still might look different. So always go for, and the best way for my highest self. You know, when you're asking for something, like I want to create this, but it needs to be in alignment with my highest self. You might be surprised, right? So maybe some of you are like, okay, I'm going to go manifest 25 people in my yoga class so I can make X amount of dollars. Well, that might happen, or you might run into somebody who actually needs a private student or private teacher for a certain amount, right? So always be open to the possibilities of how your money and your joys are going to come to you, because it is coming, especially if you ask for help, it will come directed from your highest self.
Now, it's interesting that you say that, and that's actually one of the reasons that I love numbers and focusing on the number, the money, is because it opens the door to receive it in so many other ways. Like the more that you're just like, it needs to be this way, the less opportunities there are for that to show up, right? If you can only see it a certain way. But if you're just like, hey, you know, like here's the number that I need to meet to cover my, you know, my basic needs and everything like that. Like, here's the number. Great. Then you can just run after that number and let it come to you in whatever way that it'll come to you. And I don't know, we're continually fascinated at the ways that things show up, you know. So it never seems to be what I expect it to be.
Right.
And then it's there, and then I laugh a little bit, and then, you know, we continue on. Now, the last thing before we kind of get into some, just maybe a few simple action steps for people, but the last thing I really wanted to talk about is the exchange of value, where, I mean, you're talking about money. Money is it's a representation of value. You know, in general, we have an agreement of what that is. Right. You know, I say in general because $1 to somebody who's living below the poverty line is not the same as $1 to a billionaire. Right. Right. But in general, we recognize what $1 is. Right. And it's exchange value for the money, right? It's exchange of value. It's an exchange of energy. Now, there's two. If it's an exchange, there's two parts to that. There's the giving and the receiving. So my question to you is, where do you think most people, or where do you see most people get hung up in giving? In giving? Yeah, where do they stop giving? Just use money for an example. They stop. I'm not sure I know what you mean. Where do people stop giving? You need to give in order to receive. That is the law of the universe. They stop giving or investing on themselves, I think. Oh, please tell me more. That's what I think. I mean, a lot of times. And they'll stop giving, well, tithing, you know, we can cover that too. But it's going to be like when they just feel like they don't have enough. And again, this is such a fine line because you've got your bank balance, right? You know what you have, but you can't bring in more unless you stretch yourself, unless you start thinking in larger dollar amounts. But I feel like I know that if you want to have more come to you, you certainly need to invest in yourself and then tithe. So give, and it could be $5 a month. But give to a specific organization that means a lot to you, because money is a flow, so it's got to go out in order to come in. And then the flip side of that is receiving. Right. Where do you see people that stop receiving? I think it's in opportunities. I think they stop creating opportunities to receive. Have you ever seen this, or maybe you've experienced this, where, you know, I've seen this and I've done this myself, where somebody wants to pay you for something. And you're like, no. Yeah, in fact, I was just having a conversation. Like, we have this friend, she does awesome WordPress sites. And she's like, she's worked on our site and she's tweaking it because it's not what we want. She's like, well, I'm going to do this whole thing for you guys and it'll be a case study. And I'm like, Kim, I'd really like to pay you something. Like, maybe it's not anywhere near what this is valued, but she was just like, I'll just do it for free because she wants the case study. And I'm like,
You know, it's really funny, and then it'll take forever to get done because we haven't paid for it.
Right. No, that's true.
It's true, right?
Yeah, that's a very interesting one that was shared with us. You know,
Mm-hmm.
I'll be happy to pay that plus 10%.
Oh, right.
Always at the top of the list.
Yes.
You know?
Yes.
That's another conversation.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, I think the receiving piece of it, you know, is really big. It's like you giving for one, like stopping, you know, investing in yourself. I think that's, to me, that's been.
And I should, you know, preempt that too by saying congratulations, because all of you have invested in yourself. Like,
for sure.
You've done yoga trainings, you're in our tribe, like you have, and that's why you're listening to this conversation, because you get it to a level where you're like, I want to know more. Like, you're the people that have taken and made a choice to invest.
Right. And then in receiving too, you know, it's like, where do we stop? You know, no. You know, I don't want to do that. Or, you know, well, one time with the commissions, you know, it was a super easy sale that we were to make a commission on, and then we immediately started to think about ways that we could give it back. Yeah, right. Or diminish it.
Just because it was easy. Money's going to come in different ways. Sometimes it's going to feel like a lot of work, and other times it's going to be like, oh, I just got like $55. This is awesome.
Yeah. And when you're in your gift, when you're doing and in your flow, it will be easy. And that's actually the time when it's easiest to turn it away. Right. To turn it down. Oh my God, that was so easy. Like, you can't pay me for that. Right. If somebody's offering you money, man, take that money. If you need money, take that money.
Take the money.
If you really don't need the money, still take the money and just pass it along.
Well,
you know?
Understand this. Here's something really important. And, you know, free yoga. I'm telling you, when people pay for their yoga, they show up differently. First of all, they show up. Secondly, they're like, man, they want it to work, right? So they're a little bit more open to the experience and what can happen. So, you know, if you're doing donation classes, and I know Larry and I have worked on this, always have a minimum suggested donation. And always know that if someone cannot in no way, shape, or form afford it, awesome. That's why other people are paying you, so you can make the decision to give a scholarship to somebody.
Right. Yeah, the free thing, I'm not a fan. I think it sells people short.
It does.
You know, there's a time and a place for it, 100%, like no question about it. But at the end of the day, it's like people will definitely show. Like that would be a challenge to each and every one of you. Like, whatever you paid to be in this group, imagine that you paid 10 times that.
Right. 10
times. And you'll show up 10 times as big to get the value. I know that the value's there because we built the program with it in there. I know it. Right. You know, and I know what we deliver.
And that's what it's on sale for now, 10 times.
10 times, yeah. It's worth 10 times, yeah. And it comes into value. Like, the value is creating the value. And I think that is a really big piece. Like, if you're stepping in to teach a yoga class and you think, it's okay. Like, whatever, like, you know, you really put a ceiling on what people are going to get out of it.
Right.
And the value that you can create just from your own energy. I think when you walk into a yoga class, you really, you know, have to do everything that you can to be in a place of like, man, this is a freaking awesome class.
Right.
Like, this is the coolest class and the most fun, and it's going to be the best ever.
And let me just start out by giving a quick tip. Here's one reason I think that through my experience, I understand in depth the value of someone walking into the yoga room. Because when I owned a studio, it was amazing to me how I would just say to somebody, hey, how's your day going? Like, I might be hanging out behind the desk or whatever. And all of a sudden, you know, Betty's telling me about her son who's addicted to drugs, or someone lost an aunt, or like these big stories came out. And they just felt comfortable telling me. And so, therefore, I began to understand on a very, very, very deep level, people walked into yoga class because they needed soul food, right? They needed to be connected with, and they needed healing. You cannot put a price tag on that. So this is a much different perspective from the person who's like, yeah, I want my yoga butt and I want my abs. Now, there's those people too, but trust me, if they would be at the gym or a sculpt class or something else unless they also didn't want the deep emotional connection and healing. So when we start to understand what a yoga class, just one class, can do to a person's life, and how it can then affect other people's lives around them, and the whole trickle effect, ripple effect, you begin to understand the value of just one class.
That's really beautiful, and I think that's so powerful when you look at, and this is, if you're going to do something around this, is just journal on it a little bit. Like, think about what happens in a person's life when they have 10% less stress.
Right.
How does it affect their health? How does it affect their mindset? How does it affect their career? How does it affect their relationships? How will that affect their money?
Right.
Right?
This is a great theme for class, by the way.
I mean, that's it. You think about that, and that's just 10%.
Right.
That's a fail for a yoga class, 10%, right? Everybody can do way, way better than that,
So here's, I know this is a long way around a tip, but the thing for all of us to remember, because I know out here I'm popping into yoga classes all over the place, and sometimes I just want to scream, like, are you going to direct that flow in the same way that you did before, really? But then I don't want to judge, right? I'm just trying to receive, be there, but there's lost opportunity all over the place for massively connecting with people. So a tip for all of us to do better in our yoga teaching business, and even if, and I'll share how, even if you're at a studio where they pay a flat rate, you go in and massively connect with every person in that room all the time. And understand a massive connection might just be a handshake. Hey, my name's Jane. How are you? I'm so glad you're here. Because that's more than what a lot of teachers do. It might be a hand on someone's back in child's pose, or if you adjust them, you might just say, wow, you're doing so great. This is really awesome. It could be standing at the door on the way out, thanking everyone for being there and asking, if you don't know people's names, and I don't care if you ask it every week, ask their names. Say, I just don't remember names, so tell me again. I'm so glad you're here. Like something, right? There's got to be something, because word will get out that you're the yoga teacher to go to because you're the yoga teacher that changes lives. From that, there will be opportunities for either workshops, private lessons, doubles, quads, whatever kind of thing you can come up with, and also down the road, maybe even transformational coaching. But it's got to start with you really stepping in alignment with Source, with your divine, and connecting with people.
Yeah. I mean, that's the value.
It's the value.
And I think if, to wrap up this whole, I think the whole conversation, is you're gold.
Yeah.
Like, you're the gold. You are the value. Right. Your human connection, you stepping in and standing as a leader for the highest and calling others to their highest and their best.
Right.
That's the value.
Right.
That changes every area of a person's life in a way that you can't even describe. There's no price tag for that.
Right.
So, I think that's the part where I get pissy about $25 for, a yoga class. Are you kidding me? Do you know what happens in there?
Yeah.
And that's where I'm just like, man,
Yeah.
But if that's your gig, like, your job is to look at it as an opportunity to take those people to the next place, and you better have a next place in mind.
Right.
But at the end of the day, it's never losing sight of who you are and what your value is.
Right.
And that's, Swamiji makes fun of us all the time for that. He's like, you have inside of every one of us is the most amazing gift that is way beyond what we could ever imagine. We're chasing after all these crumbs in the world.
Yeah.
And it's just like, what are we even doing?
Segue to the next call.
But really taking that to me, that is one of the biggest keys to creating a flow of abundance, is knowing how incredibly valuable you are, just as a human being, just for showing up.
Right.
And then when you begin to find words to express that, and words that connect to your audience so that you can create the value. It's not when you talk about the benefits of yoga in the class, it's not like, oh, well, this pose is good for, a tight hamstring or whatever. It's like, man, what's it worth to you to know how to be present in your life? How would your relationships change if you could really listen to the person across from you? That comes from being present. Why don't you take another breath?
Exactly.
That is freaking gold.
Right.
And that's value.
Because everybody will stop and think, oh, yeah.
Yeah, right? That's a whole different conversation. So I think that's enough.
Take some questions,
right? Yeah, let's take some questions.
Hey, well, first of all, you guys rock. I everything you say just really resonates deeply with me. So I love hearing that, and kind of reinforcing for me how I feel. I have a studio. I opened a studio a year ago, and as I said, I believe everything you say, but I have teachers that necessarily don't feel the same way. I have one teacher who happens to be a very good friend of mine who teaches at my studio and doesn't feel like it's her responsibility to help somebody to find a spiritual path or to find that spiritual part of yoga, that it's exercise and that they're there to work out.
Right,
How do I handle that?
That's great question.
Yeah, it's a phenomenal question. I really appreciate where you're coming from. You know, the way I would position it, little by little with somebody, is because when you look at it, like, everybody's definition of spirituality could be different. Mine is like, Bhagavad Gita, India, Swamis, the whole deal. It's really important to me. Some other people, like, spirituality might be, I'm going to take a walk. And that's actually when you can take a walk and look at a blade of grass or a flower and be spiritual, like, that's a really spiritual person. My point is that if there's a way to convey to her that she could, while she gives them a workout, that she could help them, like Nick said, just to live a more present life and have a better relationship with their family or at work, or to have less stress, that's a win-win. Now, what comes up for me, and the information I kind of get, is like, where in her life is she stopping, and where in her life is she in pain that she doesn't want to address it?
Damn.
Yeah. And that's the tough piece. And so you're the leader, you're the leader of example, and know that it's up to you to do what you do best and to call the shots with your staff. Some people belong, some people don't. It's really tough when they're a friend. I would always all right, well, let's see what else we can do. But there's also a great opportunity for just some conversations with her. And just Nick is really good at this. I'm sure he'll have some ideas of just asking a few simple questions. And when she starts to open up, and she'll crack a little bit, then she's going to start connecting with her people more. Because basically that's what you're just looking for, is how can she connect on just a level deeper than just the physical.
Yes, exactly.
Right.
Mike, do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I definitely have a couple thoughts on that. How do her classes do? Does she put people in class?
Well, it's interesting because one of our more popular classes is Saturday morning just because of the time. So that class does happen to get a pretty nice following. And people do come back. So, because that's what I keep thinking. Well, I'm in the office and I can hear through the door, and sometimes I just think, gosh, I wish she could be a little softer or a little, I don't want her to be me. But people are coming back, so then I think, well, maybe I just shouldn't worry about it. I should just let it go. And
Well, it could go either way with that. I mean, I'll get to that part in a second. The reason I ask is because that's an important piece. Like, if they're drawing, then they're serving people in a certain way, and that's cool. Now, with a key time slot like that, if you've got somebody in there who's really not representing the message of the studio, the vibe of the studio, and where you're actually going with it, I wouldn't hesitate to take that person out and put in somebody who really represents that, whether it be you or whether it be somebody else. And just say, hey, this is a key time slot that's going to draw no matter what. I need to have somebody in there who really stands for what I stand for. And I don't know that I would tell her that in those words. But that's the inner stance of of that piece of it. But then kind of getting back to that is like everybody has a place. You had a teacher, you've had teachers at the studio that didn't necessarily weren't super in alignment with what was happening, but they served their people. They served until they didn't.
Right.
And then it was time. Yeah. So you're going to continue to grow in that direction. That's something that you're passionate about. And it's your studio. So you grow in that direction as far as you want to go. And when it's time for that person to fall off, it'll just be obvious.
It'll happen.
Yeah, it'll happen more naturally. But let them serve and continue to let them have a place, as long as it serves you and your people.
Yeah, and the final thing I would just throw out is if you ever hear her say something that is kind of cool, Or if you get some feedback from a student, it's like, oh, well, Jane did this and it was really awesome. Like, give her that feedback. It's like, wow, this is really cool. Someone mentioned this. Like lead her to see what she can actually do. And I still think, like, the hit that I keep getting is there's something in her that needs to be worked through.
Yeah, she's really stopping somewhere.
Yeah.
And
that's why she's there.
Yeah, that's what makes, and that's just inquiry. Like, that's really just genuine curiosity, Yeah. Because it's not, when it's a matter of opinion, it's well, this is just the way I feel. Mm-hmm. And that's a great way. That's one of the indicators for me. Well, that's just my opinion.
Right.
Well, that's a great indicator to me that you're stuck in the way that you're thinking because you can't think creatively outside of that.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Right. To see it from another angle, or it's not about being right or wrong. It's about the flexibility and fluidity of your thought, so that you can see it from different angles and understand where people are coming from. And Kisma's suggestion there is fantastic, because when you share that feedback with her, when she does have something that really, that hits people, part of that to kind of crack open the door is to see the value that she's creating in people's lives.
Yeah.
Yes.
Right.
Okay.
Way to go,
Great.
Jen. So glad you're here.
So glad you're here. Yeah. Awesome.
Yes,
Thank
you guys. Great answer.
I've been teaching 15 years, and this is a great call, because I can really resonate with the money part. And I'm super passionate about what I do. Mm-hmm. Passion is probably my best quality. Mm-hmm. And, I tend to give a lot of bro deals, and then I finally found my teacher, right? Mm-hmm. And he's this incredible, world-famous teacher, not of yoga, but of something similar. Mm-hmm. And he charges me about half the price of what I would charge a client for an hour class,
Wow.
So it really throws me off, and now I look at myself and I say, well, wow.
Oh, okay.
You know what I mean?
Yeah,
so,
really interesting.
Yeah, great.
Going right to what,
Okay.
It puts into perspective what your worth is.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know what I'm saying?
So
I would argue that it distorts your perspective.
It's distorting because you're having a little bit of a what. So let me just get this straight. So he is sort of like a spiritual coach or something to you. Is that correct?
He's really, he's my acrobatic coach, but he's world famous.
Yeah.
And he's very hard to get into, and he's, sought after.
Yeah.
And I feel very fortunate.
Is this what he charges everybody, or does he have like a special?
I have no idea. He might see that I am short on cash,
Okay.
But I'm completely thrown off, and so now I feel like, wow, that's what I should be charging.
No. Okay.
Sure.
So here's what I'm going to throw out there. It's just the hit that I get that I think is really important, because you're just lovely. Like, you're so amazing. I just love it. Somewhere along the line, this is like a karma repay for you. I want you to look at it as like, this is a gift so that you can really dive into everything you love and like understand your amazing value and what you can offer to the world. And it allows you to go out and charge exactly what you want. All right. This is just a little bit of, for whatever reason, you're getting a nice gift. And that's all that you see what he's charging you. It's a beautiful karmic gift. And then kind of cut the cords to any thoughts of, you're not as famous and you shouldn't just cut it. It's different. It's a gift. And now you go on your way and you just really rock and charge what you the value is.
Yeah. Yeah. That's beautiful. Yeah.
Does that help?
It does. It does. Thank you. I'll receive it as a gift. And money thing is always an interesting one. You don't really have anybody that you can speak to. You can't speak to your coworkers, really.
Right. It's awkward. Mm-hmm.
And you can't really throw it to your boss if you really want to keep your job and show. It's a weird yogic one, especially when you love your job and you love your studio.
Yeah,
would do anything to work for your studio.
Yeah. That's part of what we've created in the yoga world. Mm.
Right. It's attached to.
You'll accept a lot less to work for an awesome studio,
Right.
Which ultimately shouldn't be the case. And there's people, blazing the trail and changing that. But where else? Like, what were another one of your questions, so we can really help you get on the path?
That's it. You've answered them. That I just wanted to touch on that question and that second subject of, willing to accept. It's a balance between happiness and being stoked about what you do, which we all are, right?
Right.
To satisfaction in am I doing the right thing for myself?
Mm-hmm.
Am I being good to myself by accepting less?
Right.
Yeah.
Am I being good to myself? Am I considering my self-worth or?
Well, I would really, take some time with that, just journaling around the value of what you do.
Yeah.
Right.
Just the more clear that you can be in that, the more that you'll just be like, wow, like this is this is the most amazing thing ever.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a really beautiful place. That's a really beautiful launching pad to kind of think about it, and it sets the baseline for you.
Mm-hmm.
And that way, like when you do cut some deals for people and things like that, like you do, you'll know really quickly like who are the right people to do that for. The people who like you who are going to accept it as a gift and really show up, or if it's just somebody kind of looking for a deal,
right,
just because. Well, that's not the person to cut the deal for. Those people who are deal seeking, those are people who need to pay 10% more.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah.
So when you look at it like that, then you can start to move into your and own your value around it, and then. You don't have to get stuck in what anybody else is charging. Like that's the comparison piece, and there's
totally.
And we always think like we put this imaginary thing of like what the market will bear. Well, this is what the market will bear. And in studio classes, there may be some truth in that because you're dealing with a collective, collective of thoughts, a collective of mentality. But when it really comes down to it, there is no limit to the value of what you do.
Right.
And the more that you own that, the more that you'll be able to express that, step into it, and provide that for people.
Right. And finally, I would say what you could do that would be really amazing is start to focus on manifesting more money for yourself from the studio because the studio has an awakening and also makes more money.
Bam.
Does that make sense?
Yes. Yeah, totally. Yeah.
Right? So somehow, like, you're there because you get it, and you have to understand, like, and this could take some time. It's going to come in a really funny, interesting way, but you're there to enlighten them of just how amazing a job they're doing, and the teachers, and how everybody can benefit and be more abundant and prosperous. Because this conversation, we all know, is nowhere near about greed. It's really about being abundant and prospering and being in the flow. So that would be a really cool, just kind of like little meditation manifestations, like, okay, somehow through the studio that I love and I serve, I will make more money because there's an opportunity for me to make more money for them too.
Nice.
Win-win.
Yeah. You're awesome. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Yeah.
Thank you. These phone calls are great.
Awesome.
Oh, thank you.
Namaste.
Namaste.
My name is Margie.
Hey, Margie.
Hey.
Hi. So my story, short and quick, is I opened a studio in September. I went through teacher training last year. I have done yoga on and off for years, probably about 16 years, but over the last couple years, it really just spoke to me and changed my life and helped me deal with a lot of stress and things that were going on. And so after I finished teacher training, I was like, I need to jump all in. I want to be able to help people. That's just my goal here, is to give people some tools for stress relief and just to be able to breathe better and feel better, and not just the physical part of it, but more the internal part of it. And I'm getting a few people that are coming to the studio and they're getting it, and there's a few people that are like, oh my gosh, when I don't come, I get more anxious. They get the benefits of it. But overall, it's really, I'm having a hard time reaching people and getting people to actually get through the door. And so I don't know how to do that. I don't know how to get, I don't know, the marketing part of it, it's hard for me. The sales part of it's hard for me because I try to explain it to people, and in our society where I'm at in this city, it's all about the quick workout, the boot camps, the CrossFit, and getting the really quick physical change. And I'm
right.
to show people more of an internal change.
Yeah, totally. Are you in Washington, D.C.?
No.
No, I'm in Eastern Washington.
Eastern Washington. Okay, cool. Great question. So you've been open for about a year?
No, just since last September. So
since September.
No,
a few months.
No,
Yeah.
okay.
Not long.
You're doing great. Okay.
Okay, good.
So part of it is you want to make sure, this is going to sound a little sci-fi, but just make sure, and I feel like it is, that your capacity for envisioning people coming through the door is there. Because it's interesting how we can block it by thinking, I'm not sure I can really handle it if everybody comes. Right? It can be overwhelming. So just do your sort of internal work to make sure, like, yeah, I'm good, I'm clear. Like, I'm ready to rock. Come on, everyone. Like, that's how you should be feeling. It's like, come on. And then I would do things like, do you have a Facebook page?
Yes.
Okay, cool. And if you send it to me, put on the form, like your Facebook page, I'll take a look at it. But I would also, on the business page, but also your personal page, just start every day talking about stuff going on at the studio. And then talk about the message. Like, make sure you're really clear with the message of the studio. It's not just like internal, calm, whatever, but just come up with like this mission statement that you're really passionate about. And think of it as, because some of the most amazing marketing is when you completely polarize yourself from everybody else. So it's like, I don't know if you guys watched the Super Bowl. I kind of watched it while we were picking up our gluten-free pizza. And what I love are the commercials, because I sort of love this marketing thing. And Budweiser had this crazy awesome commercial, which was totally making fun of all the expensive beers, you know, that people are tasting and they just kept bringing it back to Budweiser. You know, we brew it hard. Like, we're the beer for people who want to drink beer. You know, while those guys are making their peach brew or whatever, you know, we're brewing it the hard, like, we're brewing it fast and hard. It was brilliant. They kept showing the horses and the music was awesome. So they're speaking to their people, and they're also kind of making fun of all the, like, expensive beers. So what you can do is start speaking to the person who really wants to master their life, who really wants a connection with themselves and their family, and they want to be in shape, because yoga is going to get everybody in shape. So kind of play around. I'd love to just, you know, support you on this. So really, like, put in the Facebook forum some of your ideas, but that's what comes to me first. And then do your footwork. We did a lot of just beating the streets, flyers, having, like, what's your new student special? What do you do?
Oh, last month I did like 3 classes for $15.
Okay, so give a week for free. New students week free. Try it. Okay. And be like, you know, just, you could do it for 2 months and see what happens, but you need to blast it all around town, because what you want are people from everywhere that does yoga to come in and try your studio. And then you really love all over them. Like, everybody that's there for a free class is like, they're family, man. They're family.
Yeah.
Yeah, direct marketing, dropping postcards, flyers like cards, free week of yoga, going out to businesses, Rotary Club, Chamber of Commerce, any place you can to just talk it up as much as you can. But the first place is just going to start with your expansion. And again, like, I know that sounds sci-fi, but does any of that make sense?
Yeah, it does. Yes.
Yeah, it's like making a stand. Like, you need to make a stand in the market. One thing I would say, too, though, is if people are buying boot camps, do a boot camp.
Yeah, you want to look at what's working and then put your own voice on it.
Yeah. Because, I mean, that's one of the things, like, it's interesting, you know, to me, like, just as you were saying, that kind of talking around, you know, your journey into yoga, I'm like, wow, like, it's so cool. Like, clearly our message is on, because everybody who's on the call is like, they're really into this, incorporating this piece into yoga. So it's like, cool, like, that worked, you know, because now we've got all the right people in the right place.
Yeah.
So the more that you can make a stand for that, and I can't believe we're talking about beer commercials.
I know, but it was just
on our call. No, but it's so good.
Perfect.
Like, they really made it. They made a stand, you know, for what they are, whatever you may think of it.
Yeah.
So for you to make that same stand and then to just package it up in a way that they can understand.
Yeah.
So if they understand boot camps, like, do a friggin' boot camp. See, and it's
a meditation boot camp. I'm not sure what that would look like.
Well, you could do the boot camp and then have a circle right after, or some gongs or what. Like, there's a way to meet everybody where they are. Right. And then also know that, if your studio is serving strawberry and people want vanilla, they're not for you, and that's okay. But you do want to find your people, and your people are out there, right? They probably just haven't been exposed to it.
Right. Yeah, they're totally there. They're there waiting for you.
Mm-hmm.
Like, they're just waiting to see you.
Mm-hmm.
So the more that you stand up and be seen, the more that they'll be able to be like, oh yeah, I want that.
Yeah.
That'll be great. And I it's just food for thought. Like, I did a boot camp that was like insane. Like, it was a blend of insanity style cardio intervals and vinyasa yoga. It was nuts. But it was used as a way, one, for me to provide an intense experience for people and deliver a message that was also like very inspiring and intense. Right? They really like call people up to that level. Like, I think even in the marketing for it was like, this isn't for everybody. Yeah. Like, this is for, if you really want to do it, like, this is how we do it.
Right.
And it had all of those components in it, and people left energized, but also very zenned out because it had that. You don't need a ton. When you set the stage for it, then you create that contrast for people to slip into that quiet space. They slip in so easily.
Right.
So that sense of contrast can be really, really powerful. And it's honest, like that's the difference between, an hour spinning class with none of that at the end and you doing an intense class for 45 minutes and having 15 minutes of chill.
Right. Yeah.
Right.
Sometimes that's all that's needed, especially for active people.
Yeah.
So food for thought, like, there's formulas to play with and experimentation. And just kind of see what people buy. Make
sure you pop your Facebook page on the form, and let's connect you with Nick. Like, you might want to look at we have a studio in the box training, and we've got about 3 studios in it 2 right now, 1 graduated, but it might be a conversation we should have.
Yeah, for sure.
Great.
And we'll get in.
Well, thank you.
Yeah, there's a big component in that, and the last thing that I'll share around this is something that we definitely go into in depth in that other thing, but really, when you're out there having conversations with people, this is a really important piece for everybody on the line, is when you're talking about yoga, like, don't go out there and just tell them all the great things about yoga. Like, really make it about them, and in order to do that, you just need to ask them some questions. So be the one asking the questions, just really getting to know them so that you can position yoga in a way that will really make sense to them.
Perfect.
Man, like, what stresses you out? Like, what's stressing you out right now?
Yeah.
Are you feeling good in your body? There's those kind of physical things that you kind of go to, and you just kind of ask them some questions around that. What's going on? Yeah. Most often it's just like, hey, like, what's going on in your life? And they'll tell you, like, this thing's going wrong and that thing's going wrong. It's like, wow, it sounds like you're a little stressed out. It'd be helpful for you to have somewhere to come where you could just really work some of that out and find some quietude. Yeah, well, here's the thing. Like, it's really that, it's that when you make it all about them, your job is way easier. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Awesome.
Cool. Okay,
great,
cool.
Great, thanks.
Good stuff.
Okay. I have kind of the opposite experience of the first caller. I'm a yoga teacher, training director at a yoga studio in my area, and the owner is a non-yogi. Well, she's a yogi practitioner, but not yoga teacher. And since I started working there, the studio has become very body conscious and fitness oriented, and my trainings have become a lot more spiritual and, excitingly, a lot more successful. And I felt that this was somehow threatening or not really going along well with the owner of the studio. And at first, I wanted to kind of help her. I wanted to stay in the studio and kind of see if there's any way I can pull her on the bandwagon. And it just kind of backfired. Like, she's not paying me on time and not paying me for students. And
I just decided to release my attachment to helping her and transition to my own business.
Cool.
So as that happened, I started getting all of these fears coming up, like maybe the students won't follow me, or maybe I won't make enough money to sustain my business promise. So this is kind of a three-pronged question. The first question is, how do I overcome these doubts that I'm having? The second one is, how do I catch myself when I'm in kind of like self-sabotage mode, like not investing myself or not taking action or following opportunities that will lead me to my goal? And the third part of the question is, do you have any advice for a new yoga business? Besides all the wonderful things that you just mentioned to the previous caller.
Yeah. Okay, cool. Well, I'll address the second one first. You don't worry about investing in yourself. Like, you just joined our teacher training. So, you know, and you're part of a deeper conversation about these things. So you're in the right place. You've definitely invested in yourself. And most of all is, like, let that sustain you, like, really use it, you know. And again, like, it comes back to that, like, imagine that you paid 10 times as much and get, you know, really show up to get that much value from it, because it's definitely here for you. So that's a big piece. But the other piece of that was stepping into opportunities, and I think the dealing with the doubt, right, of stepping in. Now that one, I know that one's a little sticky. In all likelihood, and I don't want to set you up for the wrong thing here, but let me just speak from my experience. It's probably not going to feel very comfortable. It's going to be pretty scary. You know, that's okay. It's okay. Like, that's okay. That doesn't mean that you're doing it wrong. You know, it just means that that's what's happening. So the self-doubt piece is remembering that you can't do it wrong. Like, you really can't do it wrong. Your full potential is orchestrating this opportunity for you for your highest good. And these opportunities, any opportunities that show up for you, could not show up for you, simply could not show up for you if you were not ready to do it. Right. Right. Now, that's the universal law. That is to say that you're creating it from the inside out. Your desire for it automatically creates the possibility for it. When the possibility exists, it presents opportunities. You are ready for those opportunities if they're there for you in your reality. Does that make sense?
Yes, thank you so much.
So the simple way to connect with that for me is to just put my left hand on my heart and to remind myself, you're exactly where you need to be. Everything is perfect. And you would be amazed at how many times I have to do that in any given day. Because when you play a bigger game, it gets scary. Yeah. And if it's not scaring you, you're probably playing too small a game. Yeah. So you just, congratulations, like, you're definitely playing up a level.
Right. And then to add on to that, however, is it stops being scary when you really step into the faith piece. And it's like I said earlier, when you're in alignment with your soul's truth and when you're operating from the highest, you're like, okay, let's play. Come on. It's going to be there. I know it's going to be there. And it will flow. But it won't flow if you're sitting on the couch just like chanting. And I know that you don't do that. That's kind of the big, when the movie The Secret and the book The Secret, it's like, no, you have to like do things. But you'll do it because you'll be like, man, I'm ready. Like, this is awesome. So it's really, really cool. For your business, what I would love is outline what it looks like and put it on our Facebook page. I would love to hear like your mission statement, your points, all that stuff. And it's part of like your role in the teacher training too, how we can help you with like develop that more. So you're going to get support on that.
Yeah, for sure. And that this will be a continuing conversation, so we can be resources for that. Is that helpful so far?
Yes, thank you. This just you listening and offering all of these really important reminders, and just I'm feeling so supported right now. Like my legs and my whole root chakra is just tingling and so happy. So
she's gonna love it
so much.
Love it.
You are so welcome.
Way to go.
So welcome.
Way to go.
Fantastic.
It feels so good. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Cool.
Get that one out. Okay.
All right, guys.
That was an epic call.
It was an epic call. You guys are rock stars for being here. If anyone has questions, like as you leave, because there was a lot of stuff and things are going to come up, please don't not ask. Make sure you put it on the Facebook forum.
Yeah, for sure.
It is a secret group, and your questions serve everybody, right? If I guarantee, like this is another thing we're learning about the field of intelligence. If you have a thought, someone else has a thought, and chances are, if you're having a question from this call, someone else's. So just be the first person to ask so we can really get to it.
Yeah, it's so important, and I just want to reinforce that to say the whole reason that we're having this conversation tonight is because somebody chimed in the forum about, and I saw some things in there, and I was like, wow, we really need to talk about this.
Right.
So it was brilliant that it came out this way. It was there's pretty dense. I know that there's a lot in here, so this would definitely be one that you might want to go back and listen to again. It'll be up in the membership site. I'm going to do it right now, so it'll be up there in a matter of probably a half hour or so.
Cool.
And just go check it out, re-listen to it, and then any questions that come up along the way, the forum is there for you. So please feel free to put it on in and keep the conversation going. So, amazing group tonight. Thank you all for showing up.
Way to go.
Thank you. And just have an amazing week, everybody.
A lot of blessings to you.
Namaste.
Namaste.